This is shocking. New Mexico cops shoot at young boys aged 7 and 9 for not dropping their handgun. Let's get into the story.
Okay, here's something that really stopped me in my tracks this week. An incident out of Bernalillo County, New Mexico. Sheriff's deputies involved, but the really shocking part. It involved two young boys, just 7 and 9 years old.
7 and 9. Wow, what happened?
Well, it ended with deputies deploying non-lethal rounds towards them.
Towards the kids, non-lethal rounds. I mean, the ages alone are incredibly jarring. It's really hard to picture elementary school kids in a situation involving, any kind of police force like that.
Absolutely. And the details coming from official reports, drone footage, body cams, they make it even more unsettling. We're talking about kids literally wearing Minecraft and Star Wars pajamas.
That image.
Yeah.
Pajamas and law enforcement intervention. It's such a stark, disquieting contrast, isn't it? Especially when you learn what they had.
Exactly. A fully loaded handgun.
Oh, my goodness.
And they weren't just near it. The footage apparently shows them passing it back and forth.
Passing it.
Yeah, pointing it at each other, even pointing it towards the deputies, like it was a toy.
Treating it like a toy? That's terrifying. And dangerous.
And here's the part that really gives you chills. One of them actually tried to fire it.
Tried to shoot it?
Pulled the trigger. Thankfully, we learned later, the gun malfunctioned.
Wow. Okay. That malfunction, that likely prevented an absolute tragedy right there. So How did law enforcement handle this incredibly delicate situation?
Well, the reports really emphasize the initial response. The deputies apparently spent quite a bit of time trying to de-escalate verbally.
Okay, so talking them down first.
Yeah, the body cam audio caught them using surprisingly calm, gentle language. You hear things like, "Hey, put it down, sweetie. Lots of reassurance. You're not in trouble. Just put the gun down."
That points to specific training, de-escalation, especially in high-stress situations. But still, what a choice they faced. Armed kids. What are the tactics there? Do you rush? Do you wait?
It seems they were weighing those exact options. Move in, hold back, maybe use non-lethal force. Ultimately, they did decide on non-lethal. 2 rubber bullets were fired.
At the children.
No, and this is important, they aimed at a nearby wall. The idea was clearly to startle the boys, not hit them.
Ah, okay. An indirect use. Trying to break the standoff without causing direct harm, that's a calculated risk. A very careful approach in a volatile moment.
And it seems it worked. Eventually, they were able to safely detain the kids and get the gun.
Thank goodness for that outcome.
Yeah.
Secure the children, secure the weapon.
Which leads us to what Sheriff Allen said afterwards. He praised his team, highlighted their restraint, given the danger.
I bet. He must have recognized how close it came.
He did. He acknowledged that if that gun had fired, the deputies might have had to use deadly force. A horrible possibility.
Absolutely. And did he shed any light on the background here? This doesn't just happen in a vacuum?
Well, yes. He revealed the family was, quote, well-known to law enforcement.
Well-known. What does that mean?
Over 50 calls to the home, apparently. 5 Leo.
50. Wow. That suggests ongoing issues, instability, perhaps.
It certainly paints a picture of a family facing significant challenges. And there's more. We also found out there's a documented history of trauma for both children and their parent.
Trauma history.
Yeah.
Okay, that adds another layer. That could definitely connect to what happened, influencing behavior, stability. It points to a vulnerability that existed long before this one awful day.
And Sheriff Allen added something else really telling. He said he believed the boys had been, quote, taught how to use the weapon.
Taught. 7 and 9-year-olds.
He called it learned behavior.
Learned behavior. Well, that raises immediate questions about their environment, doesn't it? Who taught them? Why?
Deeply troubling questions. But despite that, the sheriff decided not to immediately file criminal charges against the boys themselves.
Okay. Why not?
He cited their age, mostly, and he specifically mentioned the development of their frontal lobes, like, the part for judgment, impulse control. He said they're just too young.
Right. Considering their developmental stage. That brings in psychology, neuroscience, understanding that their capacity, their intent, isn't the same as an adult's.
So instead of charges, the immediate next step was bringing in the sheriff's office's behavioral health unit.
The specialized support team.
Exactly. A team of 13 experts, clinicians, paramedics, officers dispatched right away.
That sounds like a robust response.
It is, but listen to this. The unit's clinical manager, Michael Lucero, said this specific case, quote, pushed the system to its breaking point.
Breaking point. Even with a dedicated unit like that. What does that tell us? It suggests the sheer complexity, the severity. Maybe the existing resources, even specialized ones, are strained when faced with something this intense.
And it gets worse when you hear about the specific hurdles this family faced before this incident when they were trying to get help.
Oh, like what?
Well, for instance, one of the boys was denied Medicaid. The reason? His age. Just too young, apparently.
Denied essential services because of his age. That seems counterintuitive.
Right. And then they faced a 6-week wait just for a psychiatric evaluation. 6 weeks for a family clearly in crisis.
6 weeks? That's a huge delay when needs are immediate. And what about the parent?
The parent also struggled. Difficulty accessing trauma treatment, even getting help with basic resources, despite, professionals trying to connect them.
So, systemic barriers.
Yep.
Red tape, waiting lists, maybe gaps in the services themselves. It highlights how tough it can be for vulnerable families to actually get the support they need, even when it theoretically exists.
Exactly. Lucero, the clinical manager, basically laid out this family's needs. Parenting support, trauma counseling, but also basic stuff like groceries, transportation.
That scope.
Yeah.
It shows it's not just about one thing, is it? It's about comprehensive, wraparound support, addressing the whole picture.
Which takes resources and coordination.
And time. Which they clearly didn't have enough of before things reached this point.
So where does this leave things legally? You mentioned no charges for the kids yet.
Right. The investigation is still open, so things could change. The gun obviously was confiscated.
And a key part of that investigation must be finding out how the kids got it in the first place.
Absolutely. How did a loaded handgun end up in the hands of a 7- and 9-year-old? That's the critical question. And it brings New Mexico's specific laws into focus. They have the Benny Hargrove Gun Safety Act.
Yes. That holds adults accountable, right? If they let minors access firearms.
Precisely. It creates liability for adults who don't secure their guns properly around children.
And Sheriff Allen actually hinted at that. He mentioned potential future charges against whoever was responsible for the boys getting the weapon, possibly under that very act.
So the focus might shift towards adult accountability here. Negligence, perhaps, or worse.
Yeah.
It underscores that responsibility gun owners have.
Definitely. Secure storage is key.
Crucial.
Now, something else the sheriff's office pointed out was the role technology played in resolving this without, lethal force being used.
Technology? How so?
They specifically credited drone surveillance and body-worn cameras.
Okay, I can see that. The drone gives you eyes from above, right? A safe overview of the whole scene in real time. Helps plan the response.
And the body cams provide that ground-level perspective, documenting the interactions, the de-escalation attempts.
Both providing crucial information.
The department basically said this tech helped them secure the area quickly and safely, and they believe it was instrumental in preventing a potentially deadly outcome.
So it enhances situational awareness, allows for maybe more strategic, less reactive decisions in these really tense moments. It's a significant point for modern policing.
Yeah, it really is. And thinking about Sheriff Allen's overall stance here, this whole incident just throws a spotlight on these bigger systemic issues, doesn't it? Juvenile justice, mental health support.
He seems to be leaning towards rehabilitation over pure punishment, at least for the children in this case.
He was pretty clear. He said arresting these young kids isn't necessarily the answer long term.
Which aligns with a lot of current thinking in juvenile justice, especially for very young offenders.
Yeah.
Addressing the root causes, trauma, family situation, lack of support, rather than just focusing on the behavior itself.
He talked about needing a multifaceted approach, using all the community resources available.
But he didn't let the adults off the hook.
No, he definitely emphasized accountability there, particularly for adults who endanger children like this.
So it's a balance, isn't it? Trying to support the children, provide intervention, address their needs, while also holding responsible adults accountable for unsafe environments or actions.
It's a difficult line to walk.
Extremely.
So let's just recap what we've covered in this deep dive. It started with this truly shocking event. Kids 7 and 9 with a loaded gun.
A potential tragedy narrowly avoided thanks to a malfunction and, it seems, considerable restraint from law enforcement using non-lethal tactics carefully.
Then we uncovered this backdrop of a family with significant trauma history, struggling against systemic barriers to get basic support and mental health care.
A support system described as being pushed to its absolute limit by the complexity of the case.
And legally, while the children aren't currently charged, the investigation continues, potentially focusing on adult responsibility for how the gun was accessed, possibly using that Benny Hargrove Act.
Yeah, this really goes so far beyond just kids with a gun. It touches on trauma, Failures in our support systems, questions about parenting, community resources, firearm safety. It's incredibly complex.
It really forces you, doesn't it, to look beyond the initial shock value and think about the deeper layers.
Absolutely.
So, as you're processing this, maybe think about the broader picture. How do we as a society better support vulnerable families before they reach such a crisis point? What could prevention look like?
And consider all the different viewpoints here. The children's perspective, however, limited their understanding, the deputies facing an impossible choice, the parents' struggles, the limitations of the system.
What does this incident ultimately make you question about responsibility, about intervention, and about ensuring the fundamental safety and well-being of children in our communities? Lots to think about there.
Fully loaded gun on kids' hand. How did they get it? Comment it. Thanks.